After some major backlash, former President Barack Obama has canceled his birthday party in Martha's Vineyard. According to a spokesperson, the 44th president decided to, quote, significantly scale back the event to include only family and close friends.
On his actual birthday, Obama received lots of birthday love on Twitter. Multiple Democratic leaders expressed their love for the former president. None of them mentioned his party. Former senior advisor to the president, Valerie Jarrett, tweeted her love and asked for donations to his presidential center in Chicago. Host of the Katie Halper Show podcast and YouTube show and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast, Katie Halper, joins us to discuss. Welcome, Katie. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So what do we think? Should Obama, at the beginning of the week, there were some Democrats that were defending Obama, saying, look, he's having vaccine protocols in place. He's taking all the safety measures necessary. And at the week, he changed his mind. So was that the right call? Should he have canceled the party?
I mean, I think yes, he should have. And I think that in this case, he's not being quite as hypocritical as other politicians have been. I think what's kind of offensive about the party personally is how much money he was putting into it. It was like so lavish, and it seems like a pretty disgusting thing to do, especially given how much this country is suffering. But that's kind of a separate point. I think that probably, sadly, is just politics or business as usual, which is, you have politicians, former presidents being totally out of touch with the suffering of American people. I also do think that, I don't want to equate the two parties on this totally, because I think obviously Donald Trump admitted to Bob Woodward, that he downplayed the dangerousness of COVID. But I do think that we've seen some hypocrisy, right? Nancy Pelosi got her hair done. Gavin Newsom violated the recommendations. And something I always love to remind people of, because it gets ignored and it barely got any attention at the time, is that Simone Sanders, an advisor for Joe Biden, lied on CNN, on Chris Cuomo's show actually. She was asked point blank if it was a good idea to continue with the primaries, given that the CDC that day had said it's not safe to have gatherings of more than 50 people. And she said, the CDC has said it's safe for folks to vote, which was just a lie. I mean, Chris Cuomo, to be fair to him, in a moment of rare intelligence, actually asked in his question, he said, limiting it to 50 people means that virtually every polling place will be closed. And she, told people to go out and vote. So I think it is actually important to remember that as much as the Democrats and Biden pretend to be the adults in the room and the pro-science people, it almost makes it worse that the fact that they had done that. I mean, I think that was totally craven to do. They were also, Tom Perez was pressuring governors who wanted to pause the primary and postpone it. He was pressuring them to not do that. And so it was disgusting. And I think that this is not on that level, but it's a reminder that the binary between Democrats being responsible on COVID and Republicans being irresponsible, it's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, I didn't really mind that Obama was going to have a birthday party. That part of it to me didn't really bother me because, the science shows if it was an outdoor party, which I think is what they were claiming, that there is very low risk of spread, whether you're vaccinated or not outside. They've been saying that for the longest time. So the party itself didn't really bother me. And I think that there needs to be some Democratic leaders that show that, hey, at some point we do have to get back to our lives. We have to kind of trust the science, and the science says outdoors fine.
$1 million parties, yeah.
That's the issue for me. The issue was the amount of obscene money that the Obamas now have after being public servants to this country. Barack Obama has been in politics and public service type positions forever. And it's like, how does he now have a worth that allows him this mega $1 million home on Martha's Vineyard to throw a massive party for celebrities and to have Pearl Jam play? I mean, hey, I would love to have Pearl Jam play at my party.
Well, in Pearl Jam's defense, apparently I saw an article that corrected it and said they weren't actually going to be there.
Oh,
now,
well.
But I don't know. But it was reported that they were. So, but yes, Pearl Jam, Oprah, George Clooney.
Yeah, I mean, and that is so. How does that? Why can't we just go back to the days of Jimmy Carter, right? Where it's like, just go back to being a peanut farmer. rather than going and spending all. I get it. They write books, they get Netflix deals, but they're treated like royalty after that. And that, to me, that was the biggest issue. And then, of course, just the hypocrisy of the Democrats and how they've been handling the pandemic. And then, but again, I kind of say, well, somebody's got to break that at some point and say we've got to get back to normal, to some degree. So that part I'm not bothered by, but I'm totally bothered by the fact that the Obamas are now worth what, $1 billion? They say that their brand is worth $1 billion or something. It's just crazy.
I mean, I think that what you just alluded to, though, is, Jimmy Carter was the exception. That's what makes this a more systemic, structural issue, right? Which is that all presidents, I don't remember. I mean, even, this interesting story, Truman apparently lied about how poor he was. They now know from documents he lied about how much money he had. And he is the person who because of him, they created this law that lets former presidents make as much money as they do, which is interesting. You guys should do a deep dive on that, or someone should do a deep dive on that. But back to the question at hand, I think that, Obama, well, first of all, when you've written 3 memoirs, I don't know how he has time to do that. I don't know how he has the sense of grandeur to think that he warrants 3 memoirs over the course of how many years? I mean, at least take a decades-long break, dude. But, when you've written that many books, you're going to make money, and, you're going to, I like that he stays at his mansion in Martha's Vineyard and leaves it to do things like tell the NBA not to go on strike, to crush Bernie Sanders' campaign, and to crush Keith Ellison's campaign. What else has he done recently? He needs to just stay there. Just stay there. I'd rather he stay there and have parties than leave and do, let him do the thing with Richard Branson. I mean, it's really disgusting, but let him do that. And instead of doing these weird PR, political hits on people.
Well, the funny thing, I mean, I have no love for George W. Bush, and I think sort of the rehabilitation of him by some Democrats is very deeply offensive and weird. Yeah. But I will say, at least he sort of disappeared into Texas and painted his feet for a while. He didn't do anything else. But, the point about sort of Obama has taken on a really sort of sainted role, from where I sit observing the Democrats from the right, where he can do no wrong. I mean, you even see it in these birthday tweets. Everything that the guy does is magic. Everybody wants to claim that he's their friend. And the interesting thing about it, too, in addition to all the wealth he's generated, I mentioned it at the very beginning, where they're raising money for his presidential library, which, by the way, is going to be precedent-breaking outside of the National Archives. Instead of setting it up through the National Archives, where every donation is sort of accounted for, there's a lot of transparency, he's setting it up as a private nonprofit entity outside all of the record-keeping that the National Archives does. And there's a lot of, concern right now about how they're building it, the neighborhood doesn't want it, all these things. And nobody's talking about that, right? Nobody at all is talking about that.
Yeah, he's, people love to say now, especially remember we had Obama and there were no scandals. I mean, they rehabilitate him. They're going to rehabilitate George W. Obviously, they're going to rehabilitate, not even rehabilitate, sorry, that's the wrong word. They rehabilitated George W., who has more blood on his hands than Donald Trump. I remind people to Google Iraq, right? Because people seem to have totally forgotten about that. But Obama, they think has never done any wrong. And, they never mentioned the droning program, the surveillance, the bailing out of Wall Street at the expense of Main Street. None of these things matter. And he gets to, just parade around as this, like you said, exalted, sainted figure because he's not Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the standard.
It's really quite incredible to watch. But with that, we'll leave it there. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate your input.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
And with that, we have more Rising after this.